Introduction.
Dante Gabriel Rossetti, 1828–1882, was a British poet, painter, translator, and one of the founding members of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, an art movement that sought to return to the rich detail, intense colors, and complex compositions of Italian art before Raphael. Born into a highly intellectual and artistic family, Rossetti's unique genius spanned multiple disciplines. His contribution to both visual and literary arts left an indelible mark on the 19th century, influencing not only his contemporaries, but also later generations of poets, painters, and critics. Let's discuss life, works, influences, and legacy of Dante Gabriel Rossetti, exploring the intricacies of his art, poetry, and the personal experiences that shaped his career.
Early life and family background.
Dante Gabriel Rossetti was born on May 12, 1828, in London to Italian parents. His father, Gabriele Rossetti, was a political exile from Italy, a Dante scholar and a professor of Italian at King's College, London. His mother, Frances Polidori, was the daughter of an Italian exile and sister to John Polidori, the author of the early vampire story, The Vampire. Raised in a family that valued literature, philosophy, and art, it was no surprise that Dante Gabriel, along with his siblings, Maria, William Michael, and Christina, developed a profound interest in these fields from an early age. He named Dante reflects Rossetti's lifelong admiration for the medieval Italian poet Dante Alighieri. He studied at King's College School and later enrolled in the Royal Academy of Art. However, Rossetti's academic education was far from conventional. He quickly grew dissatisfied with the Royal Academy's curriculum and teaching methods, which emphasized the neoclassical ideals of art promoted by Sir Joshua Reynolds. Rossetti's restlessness and desire to break free from artistic orthodoxy foreshadowed his role in the formation of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood.
The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, founding and ideals.
In 1848, at the age of 20, Rossetti co-founded the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, PRB, with fellow artists William Holman Hunt and John Everett Millais. The movement, which emerged in reaction to the stifling conventions of academic painting, aimed to return to the detail, vibrant colors, and spiritual intensity found in early Renaissance art, particularly the works of artists before Raphael, hence Pre-Raphaelite. They believed that the art of Raphael and his followers had moved away from the sincerity and religious fervor that characterized earlier works. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood's mission was not just aesthetic, it was also deeply moralistic. They believed that art should be truthful and ethical, capturing the beauty and complexity of the natural world and the human condition. Rossetti and his peers sought inspiration from medievalism, the Bible, literature, and mythology, producing works that often had symbolic or allegorical meanings. In many ways, their movement paralleled the writings of the poet John Ruskin, who supported their endeavor to return to artistic sincerity and emotional authenticity. Rossetti's role in the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood was twofold, as a painter and as a poet. His first major contribution to the Brotherhood came in 1849 with his painting The Girlhood of Mary Virgin, a work that exemplified the Pre-Raphaelites' emphasis on meticulous detail and rich symbolism. This painting, along with his other early works, was notable for its careful attention to nature and its use of bright, jewel-like colors.
Rossetti's major artistic works.
Rossetti's art evolved over time, moving from the early religious and medieval themes of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood to more sensual and romantic works in later years. His work as a painter can be broadly categorized into several periods, each marked by a distinct shift in style and subject matter. In the early years of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, Rossetti's paintings often drew from religious and literary sources. His fascination with Dante Alighieri, for instance, is evident in one of his earliest significant works, The Annunciation, 1850, also known as Ecce Ancilla Domini. The painting represents the Virgin Mary receiving the news from the angel Gabriel that she will bear the Christ child. The simplicity and ethereal quality of the figures, combined with the intense use of colour, set this work apart from the more traditional religious art of the time. Other early works, such as The Girlhood of Mary Virgin, similarly reflect Rossetti's interest in medieval Christianity and the purity associated with the Virgin Mary. These early paintings also illustrate the influence of early Renaissance painters like Fra Angelico, who inspired the Pre-Raphaelite emphasis on detail, vivid colours, and spiritual symbolism.
Romantic and symbolic portraiture.
As Rossetti's career progressed, his focus shifted from religious subjects to more personal and romantic themes. His portraits of women became a hallmark of his style, characterized by their lush, sensuous beauty and deep symbolism. Rossetti's muses, many of whom were also his lovers, became central figures in his art. Elizabeth Siddal, a model, artist and Rossetti's eventual wife, featured prominently in many of his works. One of Rossetti's most famous paintings from this period is Beata Beatrix, c. 1864-70, which he painted as a memorial to his wife after her tragic death from a laudanum overdose in 1862. The painting depicts Beatrice, the beloved of Dante Alighieri, in a state of spiritual transcendence, symbolizing Siddal's own death and Rossetti's grief. The work is suffused with an otherworldly atmosphere, reflecting Rossetti's growing interest in the mystical and symbolic dimensions of art. In many of his later portraits, Rossetti portrayed women as powerful, enigmatic figures, often blending mythological or literary allusions with personal symbolism. Paintings like Proserpine, 1874, and The Blessed Damozel, 1875-78, exemplify this shift. In Proserpine, for instance, Rossetti presents the mythological figure of Proserpine, who was condemned to spend half of each year in the underworld, as a symbol of loss, longing and entrapment, a reflection of Rossetti's own emotional struggles.
Watercolors and decorative arts.
In addition to his oil paintings, Rossetti also produced numerous watercolors, often inspired by medieval and Arthurian themes. Works such as How They Met Themselves, 1864, and The Wedding of St. George and Princess Sabra, 1857, demonstrate his mastery of the watercolor medium and his continued fascination with medieval legend and romance. Rossetti was also deeply involved in the decorative arts movement, which sought to elevate the status of craftsmanship and design. He contributed designs to the firm of William Morris, another key figure in the Pre-Raphaelite circle. Rossetti's designs for stained glass, furniture and tapestries were characterized by their intricate patterns and rich use of color, reflecting the same aesthetic principles that informed his paintings.
Rossetti's poetry, a dual talent.
While Rossetti is often remembered primarily for his visual art, he was also a highly accomplished poet. His literary output was significant, and his poetry often paralleled the themes and moods of his paintings. Rossetti's poetry is marked by a lyrical intensity, rich imagery, and an obsession with beauty, love, and death. His best-known collections, The House of Life and Poems, established him as a major voice in Victorian poetry.
The House of Life.
The House of Life is a sequence of sonnets that Rossetti wrote over several years. It explores the complexities of love, desire, and loss, themes that are central to much of his visual art as well. The sonnets are highly personal and introspective, often reflecting Rossetti's own relationships and emotional turmoil. The sequence is divided into two parts, Youth and Change and Change and Fate, tracing the progression of a romantic relationship from passionate love to tragic loss. The sonnet Silent Noon, one of the most famous poems from the sequence, exemplifies Rossetti's ability to evoke intense emotion and vivid imagery. The poem captures a moment of stillness and serenity, a temporary reprieve from the turbulence of life. It is both a celebration of love and a meditation on the fleeting nature of happiness.
2. Poems 1870.
Rossetti's 1870 volume poems include some of his most celebrated works, such as The Blessed Damozel and Jenny. The Blessed Damozel is a poem about a woman in heaven who longs to be reunited with her lover on earth. The poem blends religious and romantic imagery, creating a vision of love that transcends earthly boundaries. It reflects Rossetti's fascination with the afterlife, spiritual transcendence, and the idea of eternal love. Jenny, on the other hand, is a more controversial poem that explores the life of a fallen woman. It examines the social attitudes toward prostitution and the plight of women in Victorian society, offering a more critical and socially conscious perspective than much of Rossetti's other work.
Personal life and relationships.
Rossetti's personal life was as tumultuous and complex as his art. He had a number of significant relationships, most notably with Elizabeth Siddal, Jane Morris, and Fanny Cornforth. These women not only influenced his life, but also played central roles in his art, serving as models, muses, and sources of inspiration.
Elizabeth Siddal.
Elizabeth Siddal was Rossetti's first major muse and his eventual wife. She was an artist and poet in her own right, though she is perhaps best known for her role as a model in many of Rossetti's early works, as well as John Everett Millais' famous painting Ophelia. Rossetti and Siddal's relationship was passionate but troubled. Siddal suffered from ill health and depression, and their marriage was marked by tension and emotional strain. Her death in 1862 from a laudanum overdose devastated Rossetti and had a profound impact on his later work, particularly Beata Beatrix.
Jane Morris.
Jane Morris, the wife of Rossetti's close friend and collaborator William Morris, became another of Rossetti's key muses in the 1860s. Rossetti was deeply infatuated with Jane, and she appeared in many of his paintings, including Proserpine and The Daydream. Their relationship was emotionally charged and has been the subject of much speculation. While it is unclear whether they were ever lovers, there is no doubt that Jane Morris had a profound influence on Rossetti's art and poetry.
Fanny Cornforth.
Fanny Cornforth was a working-class woman who became Rossetti's model, muse, and companion in the latter part of his life. Unlike the ethereal and enigmatic figures of Siddal and Jane Morris, Cornforth was often depicted in a more sensual and earthy manner. Their relationship was controversial, especially within the context of Victorian society's rigid class structures, but Cornforth provided Rossetti with comfort and stability during his later years.
Decline and legacy.
In the final years of his life, Rossetti struggled with mental health issues, exacerbated by his use of chloral hydrate, a sedative, and his chronic insomnia. His later works, both in poetry and painting, became increasingly introspective and melancholic. He continued to produce art, but his output slowed and his health deteriorated. Rossetti died on April 9, 1882, at the age of 53. While his life ended in relative obscurity and personal tragedy, His influence on both the visual and literary arts has endured. The Pre-Raphaelite movement, of which he was a founding member, left a lasting impact on Victorian art and paved the way for the aesthetic movement and later Symbolism. Rossetti's blending of visual and literary expression continues to inspire artists and poets today.
Conclusion.
Dante Gabriel Rossetti's life and work embody the intersection of art, literature, and personal experience. His contributions to the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood helped shape the course of 19th-century art, while his poetry stands as a testament to his unique lyrical voice. Whether through his sensuous portraits of women, his richly symbolic works, or his haunting sonnets, Rossetti remains a figure of enduring fascination, a complex artist whose work continues to resonate with modern audiences. His exploration of beauty, love, and loss, both in his art and his life, speaks to the timeless human experience and ensures his place as one of the great creative minds of the Victorian era.